Hey everybody, I just like to make a comparison that's really not going to make anybody happy. It's not going to make Hindus happy. Some of them might find it insightful, but it's not going to make Ashotwal happy. But I have really recently been seeing a similarity between Odin and Vishnu. And these are two different ideas of God, the same kind of persevering, preserving manifestation of God from two very different sides of the globe. We're talking about as northern Europe as you can get, and India, which is towards the bottom hemisphere, the southern hemisphere of the world. But the more I study, I've been studying Odin quite a bit recently, and the book that I have learned a lot from is Odin's Way in the Modern World by Wayland Skallagrimsson. This is what it looks like. But the more I learn about Odin, I see that his only motivation is to push back the apocalypse, to push back the end of the world as far as he can for as long as he can. He knows that Ragnarok is going to come, which is the Nordic Viking apocalypse, basically. The end of the world, where the forces of order and chaos will meet and destroy each other. Odin's main motivation is to push that back as far as possible, because he is one of three that created the world, according to the Nordic pantheon and mythology. Now, if we go to India, we look at Vishnu and his incarnation as Krishna. Krishna came to make society sustainable. He came to sustain society in relation to the world, in relation to how we operate on the earth, and how much we consume and how much we give back, sustainable, so that humankind can pretty much last as long as possible. And the thing about going back to Odin, the thing about Odin is that he has so many different personalities. He has so many different personalities that he manifests on this earth, in Midgard. He has so many different functions, but they're all driven to the same purpose of pushing back Ragnarok for as much time as possible. Now, the thing about Odin is that in order to do this, he uses the right and left hand paths. That means he uses good and evil techniques. He seems to do evil that would be considered irredeemable, but it's always for the purpose of pushing back Ragnarok, of preserving the world longer and longer. And Krishna, going back to India and Hinduism, Krishna did the exact same thing. He used the left and right hand path. He pretty much created in human history the idea of subversion, of deception in military conflicts. The idea that use misdirection and trickery in order to subvert your enemy's attacks, so subvert your enemy's goals. And it wasn't direct, and it was really the first time in history. I think that the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata, which dictates the war that Krishna was part of, I think it was 5,000 BC or more. The Bhagavad Gita as we have it now is probably 500 to 800 BC. But I think the war, despite many scholars thinking that it lasted much earlier in history, I think it was around 5,000 BC to 8,000 BC. And he really introduced the idea of deception into warfare. And Odin, the way he operates in this earth, he takes advice from Loki, the trickster. He takes counsel from Loki, not because he wants to further the cause of the giants, of the forces of chaos, but because he wants to use any technique that he can in order to make this world last as long as possible. And he's willing to do it, and he does do it in mythology and in the real world. Maybe not in the literal terms that mythology displays it as, his actions as, but really what mythology is always meant to communicate is truth. It's not meant to be the truth, but it's meant to point to and communicate the truth uh, to those who are willing to delve deeper into its meaning, into its symbolism. And that's exactly what Krishna did. Krishna in India and Hinduism. Um, he he plotted for the destruction of the Kshatriya warrior class that was dominating India. It wasn't the Brahmin class, it wasn't the king class, it was the Kshatriyas. And well, there's many Kshatriya kings, but anyway, he plotted for the destruction of the evil, the negative kings that were just milking the earth dry of its resources and the people dry of their morality, of their everything that they could do. He took from them. He demanded everything of them. Duryodhana, the negative and evil kings of that time. So Krishna plotted for their destruction, and Krishna also plotted for the destruction of the good side, because he needed Kshatriyas, warriors, to fight the evil side, but he still didn't want the warriors, the Kshatriyas, to have control of Indian society all over India after the negative and evil kings were destroyed. He didn't want the warrior class to still be in control, so he also plotted for the good warriors to die, for their children to die, so that their legacy wouldn't continue on. And I think that this is very Odin-esque. It's trying to preserve through means that seem as if you're fighting against the side of good, the side of virtue, but with the ultimate motivation of preserving the world, preserving society that is in balance with Earth, and society of humankind not taking from the Earth to such an extent that we can't live on this Earth for thousands and thousands more years. And Krishna and Odin have been planning this for a long time. I think that they're a very similar entity. They've both been trying to do the same thing of bringing humanity into balance with Earth and fighting back the forces of chaos, even in humanity, for a very long time. And if we look at both these entities, spiritual entities, Krishna, which was the incarnation avatar of Vishnu on Earth, the god of preservation, Vishnu in Hinduism, is very similar to a lot of the functions Odin has. And Odin is never described as having avatars in a sense like humans that were incarnations of him on this Earth, but he does have many different functions that are very very specific and human-like and relate to this world specifically, Midgard. I would not be surprised to find something in the Poetic Edda, the Prose Edda, that shows how Odin actually incarnated in certain humans. And I haven't really found a whole lot of evidence for that yet, but it seems like he would have avatars just like Vishnu had. And it seems pertinent. It seems necessary for these spiritual, these higher forms of consciousness, these spiritual beings, to incarnate here in forms that we could relate to, we could understand, to communicate with us, so that they can help us. Because how else are they going to help us? They can't. In order for this universe to maintain a sense of balance, they can't literally come down and just destroy all the forces of chaos. They have to convince us to do so, and they have to do so in forms that we would relate to, that we would see, and that forms that really exist in an anthropomorphic form. And really, when I thought of this, it was just off the top of my head. But the more I think about it, the more that it makes sense. And there's relations between not only Odin and Vishnu, but you can talk about preserving spiritual entities throughout the world, whether they be spirits or gods, throughout the world. Just the more you look at humankind, you see how God manifests himself in so many different forms, in so many different cultures, in so many different ways, in order to help us. And I say God. Some people, like Asatwara, might say the source. They may not recognize one God. Of course, they recognize multiple gods, but there's an idea that, the runes are the gods of the gods, and, the source of the runes had to be something. There had to be a source. So maybe it's just the source, the all. And we're all a part of that. And that's true in Asatwar and Hinduism. The same, exactly the same. This is why I'm drawn to both these paths. But anyway, thanks everybody for listening who has followed me this long and watching this. I don't have a lot of viewers, to be honest, right now. I'm still trying to figure out how to get views on YouTube. But this is a topic that really matters to me. And hopefully, the more I talk about topics that matter to me, the more I talk about spiritual topics that I care about, and the more people will take notice. But thank you, and I will produce more videos very soon.